A text says, "You're on my mind." A bouquet from 1-800-Flowers says, "You're my everything." Heartfelt moments belong in the real world, not just your phone. For 50 years, 1-800-Flowers has helped millions of people make memories that'll last a lifetime with gifts they'll cherish forever. Their expertly curated arrangements and gift baskets ship nationwide with a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Don't wait for the next big moment. Make it when you visit 1-800-Flowers.com/SXM today. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/SXM.
This episode is supported by PrizePicks. PrizePicks now has early payouts. You now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. And with a new social feeds feature, you can share PrizePicks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code DFS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code DFS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome in. We are back for the divisional round here. Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined, as always, by Matthew Drake May Betz.
Kyle, I'm worried about our boy. I saw a stat from the great Robert Mays, the Athletic Football Show.
Great dude.
The Texans, have not allowed a positive EPA dropback game since week 2. Week 2, Kyle. I mean, think about what you were doing in week 2. That was a lifetime ago. So look, Drake May has a chance to quiet the haters that have said all this is schedule-based. They've had the easiest schedule in the world, which the facts are the facts. They truly have. But they beat the Bills. They beat the Bucks. They have a chance to take down a legit pass rush and amazing defense. We'll talk about that game obviously today. But anytime Drake May is playing football on the weekend, I'm a happy camper. I'm also happy because I don't have to sit down and invest 3 hours of emotion, energy, just all these things that we do for our teams for the stupid Eagles offense. Thank God that's over. Am I right? So this weekend's going to be great. I'm excited for these games.
Fandom is a weird thing. I'll just say that if you were to think about all the psychology that goes into rooting for your favorite team, it's okay, there's trauma involved. There's these weird ties to players, teams, so many different things. And now you are free. And let me just tell you, man, I have been here for years. It's a great feeling in the playoffs because you get to enjoy the playoffs. And especially this weekend, some people would say the divisional round is the best weekend of football all year long. This playoff round, we have some great matchups. We're going to highlight those for DFS. There's a Saturday 2-game slate. There's a Sunday 2-game slate. But if you really want to play it, the way that we're going to talk about it is the 4-game. In our Best Plays article, which will be out this weekend, we will have all of that for you. So however you're interested in playing this, you can tailor it to however you want to play. You can use our optimizer, all of our projections, and you can do it for free because we're doing this stupid thing. We've done it for years. Our company still does it. We don't even have meetings about it anymore. That's the problem. Is Andy says, hey, we're giving this thing out for free for the rest of the playoffs. So anybody that wants to jump on dfspass.com, they get it for free. They didn't ask Betz or myself.
No, there was no memo on my desk, on Monday morning. There was no notification, no email, no Slack message, just this is happening. So yeah, I mean, I love free stuff. Who doesn't, right? My kids, my girls, the twins, they're 3.5. We just took them for the first time 3 or 4 weeks ago to Costco. Dude, You would have thought we took them to Disney World. With the samples, they just couldn't wrap their head around this is free. So we're basically giving free stuff away. And I don't know about you, Kyle. I love free stuff. My kids love free stuff. Imagine not trying the DFS pass. Could not be me. We actually had somebody tag Chris and I this past weekend. So Kyle, no thanks to you, obviously.
I don't want credit.
Who took down, I think it was the Daily Dollar, which is an insanely hard tournament to win.
I always look at that tournament and go, I'm not playing. This is too hard, even though it's obviously cheap.
Yeah. But somebody was like, oh, I used to be in the DFS pass, but I had kids, and obviously then I had expenses, so I had to cut back. But I heard you guys were doing it for free, so I hopped back in. Dude won first place. So you tell me, Kyle.
This past weekend, we don't get to recap the same way we usually do on our Tuesday episodes since we're just once a week. But I was in Kentucky. We had a little family wedding. Also went to the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory. Pretty cool. Got to swing a King Griffey Jr. bat.
Nice.
So you tell me who's having a good time. I didn't get to play the same volume, but I felt like a lot of the stuff we talked about on the podcast. Jordan Love was one of my bigger stances where it's like, okay, 4 touchdowns, they lost, but like Jordan Love was a legitimate, play on the slate. And a couple of the levers that you get to pull in these smaller slates, like that felt really, really good. Jalen Coker, one of the guys you talked up on this podcast, I played a lot of him over McMillan. So volume-wise, I didn't get to play as much as I wanted to being at the wedding, but it was a profitable weekend for your boy. And especially when it comes to the playoffs, you're like, sweet, I have more money to be able to throw at these other rounds.
Yes, sir. I thought it was a really good weekend of football. I mean, the games themselves were just so fun. Every one of them felt like it came down to the wire for the most part. Bills-Jags was great. The Rams game was awesome. Obviously, that all-timer in Chicago on Saturday night was great. I mean, outside of Monday Night Football, which was honestly a pretty much a snooze fest, it was an incredible weekend of football. Hopefully, the games followed up this week. But I definitely think that, I like you said, I like a lot of the levers we pulled last week. I think that worked well for people. We talked a lot about on that two-game slate on the Saturday one, where it was like, hey, optimizers are going to force you to play Josh Jacobs, Colston Loveland, and Puka. Like that trio is just going to be wildly owned together. If you maybe just play 2 of those pieces, don't go crazy here, but like just play 2 of them, you'll get huge leverage on the field. And Josh Jacobs flopped. So if you did pivot off of Jacobs onto somebody else and kind of played Loveland with Puka, hopefully you had an awesome weekend. But yeah, I had a pretty good weekend as well. So hopefully we can find some edges here on these matchups and really get some unique ideas to take down some tournaments. I will admit, last week I felt really good about kind of the strategy for the slates. This week, I'm not going to lie, I'm having a tougher time trying to kind of uncover unique angles because when you get to this part of the season, like all these teams are good. Of course, you can nitpick certain parts of teams and stuff like that, but all these teams are really good, and I can honestly see any of these teams winning these games. It's tougher to paint a picture for San Francisco just because of the injury situation and the spread is, a touchdown, but I don't know, Texans and Patriots feels like a coin flip. I could see Chicago just staying, they just feel like the magical team this year. I could see them doing it again. Buffalo, Denver is a coin flip, so I'm excited to talk about this. Hopefully you have uncovered, Kyle, the keys to the slate.
I did spend a lot of time with these teams. I wrote up the Pace of Play article, which is on the site, walking through every single game. We'll talk about some of those points here, but it was a joy to go through these teams and go, okay, these are playoff teams for a reason. And when I think back to a lot of conversations we had in the summer, some of it's best ball related, it's like, okay, the things we were envisioning for the Bears, these young players, a new play caller, it's like, we saw a path forward for this team, and best ball is a different market. But like in the NFL, it's like, okay, you invested the offensive line. This team works. And I'll even talk about the Chicago run game. I think they're in a really good spot here. But all 8 of these teams are super intriguing. The Saturday 2-game slate. So if you want to play that, it's the Broncos and Bills first. Broncos are 1.5-point favorites. Then it's the Seahawks and 49ers. Seahawks are 7-point home favorites. So pretty wild that we're talking about Sam Darnold for the second year in a row out of nowhere. And okay, so really quickly, talking about the 49ers, like, did you kind of see that game the way that it went in the second half against the Eagles, where it was just like, they're just letting this team kind of hang around.
That's what we talked about
some more
on the show. You were like, how did they lose this game? And I was like, well, there's one man who's calling plays. That's named Kevin Patullo. There's another guy named Kyle Shanahan who's a wizard. Advantage Kyle Shanahan. Like, if you just let them stick around long enough, you cannot win in today's NFL over a big enough sample of just saying, we'll figure it out in the second half. We'll play conservative. We'll play good defense and we'll win. You might win 6 out of 10 games doing that, but you can't win sustainably long-term over a big sample. And you saw it just kind of bite him in the butt. Ultra conservative on the play calling and just willing to punt the ball back to Kyle Shanahan's offense, no matter who's on the field. Like, obviously they lose Kittle. You think, there's no way they can win this game. the way that he's scheming up to Marcus Robinson and the trick play with Juwan Jennings, like Kevin Patullo was never doing any of that. So credit to Kyle Shanahan. I mean, I don't know if he's actually going to win Coach of the Year, but he probably should, considering how well they are performing, given injury after injury, week after week. They're still here. The books are saying the chances of that happening again this week are super, super slim, but he might be the best play caller in the game this weekend. So Kyle Shanahan, credit to him, credit to the Niners. It's predictable, right? We talked about it on the show. It's like if you just let the Niners stick around, they can win this game, and that's what happened.
Coach of the Year market, I feel like this year, I think Shanahan's award is who has endured the most to get where they're at. That feels like Shanahan. But then you look at Ben Johnson, you look at Mike Vrabel, D'Amico Ryans, Mike McDonald, all of those guys. You could throw in Sean Payton, their number one seed. All of those teams, you're like, wow, they did a pretty good job this year considering the circumstances and everything else. I mean, the Texans started the year 0-3. It's wild, and they have a legitimate shot to make it to the AFC title game. So the Sunday 2-game slate is the Patriots at home against the Texans. Patriots are 3-point home favorites. And then the Sunday night game is going to be intriguing and incredibly cold. So the Rams are 3.5-point road favorites in Soldier Field. Last thing I want to mention before we break down these games is Sunday is where the weather concerns are. That's what's going to pop up. And as of this recording, there's things we know and things that we won't know in a couple of days. Betz and I's refrain that we always share on the podcast is that the totals, the projections, all of those things have the weather baked in. So could things suddenly change? Sure. I think for the Chicago game, when you add in the temperatures, potential wind, maybe a little bit of snow, those things all add up, which is why I think this game's at 48.5 and not at 50.5. But any other weather concerns you want to mention on those two games?
I do think it's natural this time of year to double and triple count the weather. And you already mentioned it, 48.5. It's not like this game has a 42.5 total or something like that. 48.5 is still pretty good, even on a normal main slate. And on this slate, it's still 3 points clear of the next game, which actually Seattle and San Fran and Denver and Buffalo are tied at 45.5. So even with some of this weather stuff baked in, market is already saying this game is, from a median outcome projection, likeliest to be the highest scoring. So again, don't be super, super afraid. Obviously, adjust as you get news and as you get more information, if the line changes, all those sort of things. But I do think it's super easy to be like, oh man, it's going to be so cold in Chicago. There's no way the Rams can move the ball. And it's well, I don't know, man. These guys have played in cold weather before. It's not like it can't happen on a one-game slate. Don't double and triple count. So I am pretty much ignoring anything weather-related this weekend unless we get major differences in news. Again, lines and totals over the years just get sharper and sharper and sharper. This stuff is already baked in, so don't double and triple count.
And myself as an athlete, which I know you would concede that point as well.
Oh, dude. You? Come on. I've seen you play some pickleball.
Today I went out, played some pickleball. The feels was, I think, 14 or 15, outside. And at first, that first reaction of the first 5 minutes, my hands, I'm like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to play? My hands, I got in there, man, feeling great, had a good day on the court, and I was warm. And these are NFL athletes. So
Kyle, Caleb Williams, same.
I feel like, we're pretty close. I'm trying to put myself on a same playing field as some of these athletes. I'll give you a name later. Adam Thielen. He's out of the league. I'm out of the league. Same thing.
Same exact thing.
Same exact kind of guy. All right, let's jump into it.
Stack Attack.
All right, let's preview this first game before we have a break because the Bills travel to Mile High to play the Broncos. This line is flipped. Earlier in the week, it opened Bills -1.5. Now it's Denver -1.5. It's almost a pick 'em. The over-under is 45.5. And you'll notice that the Saturday games in Denver, in Seattle, some more out west, we're not really dealing with any weather-related stuff. We're not dealing with, much wind, precipitation, any of that stuff. So weather-wise, who cares? These two teams, I need you to be the one to deliver this information, could not be more different right now when it comes to who is healthy. I love watching Josh Allen play football, but he has nobody out there right now. I mean, they literally, you go search for their depth chart online, and it's they don't have anybody else available on sites to show you who's on the depth chart.
It's rough, man. Yeah, and we talked about that a little bit last week, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They've had defensive tackles out. They might get Ed Oliver back this week, which would be huge. But, Maxwell Harrison missed last week's game. He's out again this week. Jordan Poyer's out this week, most likely, I believe. So they've just got issues everywhere. Terrell Bernard missed last week. Those guys, a couple of them could be back. On the offensive side, this is where it's like, who the heck is catching the football from Josh Allen? Because if you saw last week's game, you saw a rotation that we normally would see, but in the game, Gabe Davis tears his ACL, Tyrell Shavers tears his ACL. And so at this point, they are literally left with Brandon Cooks, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, and likely Curtis Samuel, who hasn't played in quite a while, since late November, with an elbow injury, I believe it is. So he's been on IR. He practiced in full. He's officially going to be listed questionable, McDermott said, but I would assume with the full practices, he'll play. So you'll have the issue we always have with the Bills pass catchers, right, is that they're always so spread out and they do a full rotation. They don't really have a choice. Like when they're in 3 wide receiver sets, I feel pretty good about who's going to be on the field. I do think these wide receiver injuries could lead to a lot more 12 personnel, a lot more Dawson Knox than maybe we're used to with Dalton Kincaid, of course. But Kincaid also got banged up last week. He was LP to start the week. They're calling it a calf issue, and he's had the lingering knee injury. But it was weird. Like he was in a boot after the game, which they described as a precautionary measure, not normally the case for a calf issue. So I'm kind of just like antennas up, trying to follow this news as closely as I can throughout the weekend. But that's the state of the Bills. Major injuries on both sides of the ball. But if there's one quarterback who can overcome it, it's Josh Allen.
Yeah, I'm starting to sort through these options. And Shakir is going to get clicked because I feel like I have the same conversation. It's like, you're going to get some volume. He's going to be fine. I always question the ceiling. I think nobody really wants to click Keon Coleman, and yet they're kind of at this point where it's like, if you're going to be able to beat somebody in man coverage, he might be the dude. He might be the one that physically can win those 50-50 balls. I worry about this team on the road, and like, I just worry about multiple players that I want to invest in. Like I'm looking at this from a 4-game slate, which is how we're going to look at these games. And I just go, who am I really bullish on the Bills? It's like, I guess Josh Allen, because I'm supposed to and because he's great, but I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the Superman cape is fully on. Like you saw that in the game last week. Multiple rushing attempts on obviously the short yardage stuff. They did a lot of the sneak / tush push that they do. Got tush pushed almost from the 9-yard line, like into the end zone.
Loved that.
Which was incredible.
I was on the road driving and I just see this play.
Yeah, I mean, what a play. So you got all those narratives, but they're not even narratives. Like it's just true. The only way that the Bills can win this game, is on the back of Josh Allen. They know that. The Broncos know that. Everybody knows that, right? So I do think playing Josh Allen naked is viable if you think you could probably get 2 rushing scores here, something like that. If you want to stack him, like you said, Khalil Shakir is obviously the best bet for volume. What does that mean, right? Like last week, he kind of needed 12 catches to even like really matter on the full 6-game DFS slate. His ADOT was less than 2 yards last week. So on DraftKings, sure, you could paint a picture where 6 for 50 or something like that ends up good enough on the slate if it's super low scoring or something, or if you're playing the 2-gamer. But on FanDuel, where like you got to have touchdowns, I think I'll probably look elsewhere in the wide receiver room. I agree with your point on Keon Coleman. I think the most likely outcome here is like 2 for 21, like not really that helpful. But if there's like a play down the sideline that he has to win on man coverage, and this is the dart throw you needed, where 3 catches for a touchdown is enough at 3,500 on DraftKings, you could paint that picture for sure. So I don't hate that call at all. I think Brandon Cooks is probably your best, air quotes, cash game option, salary adjusted, because he'll be on the field the most. But at some point, it's like, man, is this version of Brandon Cooks going to keep winning against one of the best defenses in the league? Who the heck knows, man? But they need him out there. He's obviously their top guy. And then when you get to the tight ends, I actually think Dawson Knox is probably more interesting on the 2-game slate. Like it might be a little bit thin for the full 4-gamer. But on the 2-gamer, I do think they're going to have to do a ton of 12 personnel. And we'll see on Dalton Kincaid's health. It is a good matchup for the tight ends. Denver quietly allowed the 7th most targets and 9th most yards to tight ends during the regular season. And I think a lot of that is just playing away from Pat Surtain. So I'm interested in Kincaid if we get good health reports. I'm also interested in Dawson Knox as a dart throw. But to me, this is one of those games where it's really tough to paint like a bull case on these pass catchers.
Yes, and let me clarify. I like Keon Coleman relative to his cost and relative to how much he's going to be played. I like the call on Knox in the 2-game slate. The way that defenses have faced Josh Allen all year is they've run the most single high safety looks in the NFL. It's 64%. The next closest offense is only at 56%. So it's like, we know what this team wants to do. They want to run the ball. They're third in rush rate, third in EPA per rush. It's basically been Josh Allen or James Cook. I mean, there's a reason that Josh Allen finished as the QB1, and yet Khalil Shakir was the wide receiver 38, and Dalton Kincaid was the tight end 15. It was basically those two dudes. So if you want to play Josh Allen naked or with the Keon Coleman, that's kind of my preferred route. Before we get to the Broncos side, James Cook is still in that same range where it's like, well, you can use him as leverage if people aren't going to play him as much because RJ Harvey's probably going to get clicked more on the other side.
I do think RJ Harvey will be, I don't know about way more popular, but definitely more popular from a comparison sake between him and James Cook. So I do like that call for leverage. You've seen games in the past too where like Allen runs in 2 and James Cook runs in 1 and they're the only guys that score on the Bills. So you can play them together. I will say last week I was kind of disappointed. I thought we would see more usage in the pass game with Ty Johnson out. They didn't really change his role much in that game despite losing Gabe Davis and Tyrell Shavers picking up the ACL. So it can happen any week, of course. This is a 1 week game that we play, but I was pretty disappointed in that. So the matchup is not great. The Broncos have been pretty good in run defense overall on the season, but this is one of the best rushing attacks in the entire league. And we know what can happen when you give James Cook 20 touches, a chance to break off a big one. So I am interested in James Cook, and just from kind of thinking through like what optimizers are doing as far as projections and kind of how like builds are going to look.
As an opto guy.
You know me, Kyle, big opto guy. Had a nice night on Showdown Monday night in the optimizer. A lot of optimals this weekend are going to want you to play Bo Nix and RJ Harvey together, which I'm not saying don't do it in your lineups, but just understand that's what a lot of the field's going to do. So if you wanted to say, look, looking for leverage on this slate and get early information, you could just play Josh Allen, or you could play James Cook, or you could play them both together and not play Bo Nix and RJ Harvey and get leverage. So that's something I'm thinking through as we kind of get closer to lock. But yes, I do think James Cook still has the ceiling we're looking for, even though last week was definitely disappointing.
On the Broncos side, Bo Nix is going to be one of the easier clicks of the weekend, just in terms of adjusting for salary at $5,800 on DraftKings. I think my issue is he's been so up and down. We just profiled him on the main show, The Truth About Quarterbacks. So I want to ask you this question. This is a football question first. Do you think that they are the number 1 seed and Bo Nix was a part of it, or do you think that they were a number 1 seed almost in spite of him?
It's an interesting
and
question.
Obviously, I'm painting a dichotomy here, but I think my feeling in just looking at him is like, he's been a good NFL quarterback. I think he's also kept them as an offense feeling kind of capped some weeks.
I think he's been wildly inconsistent. And so there are moments where it's like, oh, Bo Nix had an awesome game today. And, they don't win that game whenever it was against the Giants where they had that crazy comeback without Bo Nix playing at an extremely high level.
Correct.
In the third and fourth quarter. But overall, there's so many moments where you're like, what just happened? Yeah, what just happened? And then they put the defense in a difficult position and the defense wins the game for them and stuff like that. So I think it's probably like 50-50 on that dichotomy, but I would say he's not like Josh Allen is the reason the Bills are winning games, right? No question about it. That I don't think will really happen right now with Bo Nix and the way he's played this year. Could he get there as a player? Maybe, but I don't think he's on that type of trajectory right now. So I think to answer that question, probably more in spite of Bo Nix than because of Bo Nix.
Because of the way that he is kind of like, you talked about that big game against the Giants, he had a couple others. It's like he had these backdoor performances where he was backed into a corner and had to throw for 300. It was like volume-based stuff. So in the game scripts where you think Denver has to come back, then Bo Nix double stacks with James Cook as the bring back is kind of the way that I'm envisioning how to do it. Pat Bryant is interesting from a pricing standpoint. Interesting also because we haven't seen him in a little bit because he was knocked out. But I feel like I'm trying to figure out the two options, and knowing that Nix and Harvey are popular, I'm trying to figure out who the third piece is. Maybe it's too thin. Dart throw wise, I like Troy Franklin. I know that his route share has not been great when Bryant's been on the field, but he led the team in 20-plus air yard targets and design targets this season. So in other words, he's getting the quick, short stuff, the Khalil Shakir routes, and he's getting the deep routes, which are kind of make him a pretty volatile player. So in large field stuff, I think I'm interested in him because he's not going to get clicked at all, but I think Bryant's going to get clicked more because his per route stuff's going to look good since, he's been around. It's
also a pricing thing too, right? I mean, Franklin at almost 5K on DraftKings is kind of in no man's land.
There's tiers with the Broncos wide receivers.
Yeah, so if you're looking for a large field, like playing the Millie this weekend, a guy that nobody's playing, Troy Franklin, nobody's playing on the 4-gamer. On the 2-gamer, I could see him. Kyle has his hand up. He's playing him. On the 2-gamer, I could see him coming up a little bit in roster percentage. But yeah, if you're making me pick one, I think I lean Pat Bryant. I mean, the field agrees with that. The tricky thing with Sean Payton and with this wide receiver room is it's kind of like the Bills in a way, right? Like Sutton is the guy that rarely leaves the field. Franklin will come in. Pat Bryant will come in. You will see Lord Jordan Humphrey for probably more snaps than you care to see. So they kind of are willing to do all of that. And then Marvin Mims will get a couple touches, so it feels very similar on both sides of the ball where you just kind of call your shot and hope that you hit lightning in a bottle here and get lucky. That's how I'm handling it. I will say, just kind of high level thinking about Bo Nix and how likely I think he is to have success here. I think you're hoping he runs a little bit more in the playoffs at this point. I do not personally think he's going to have an awesome game as a passer here. Sean McDermott has done an awesome job disguising coverages, changing looks, really kind of making life tough on young quarterbacks. And I know Trevor Lawrence had a nice fantasy day last week, but if you watched, part of those games, like a couple of those interceptions and plays like that, he had really kind of looked like he was not sure of what was happening post-snap, and that's McDermott's specialty. So even though they do have some injuries defensively, I feel like this is one of those spots where, Bo Nix is a guy I love to play at low roster percentage, where it's like, I could see the outcome here for 25 points. I could also see 10 and wouldn't be surprised either way. But if the field, because of his price, is going to lean into him, I am probably going to come in well underweight and just kind of hope for the best and maybe hope this game goes under. That's my lean personally on Bo Nix. So I'm going to have a pretty big fade position here this weekend, and that guarantees he'll probably go for 30 points.
Yes, definitely. I agree with you because at 5,800, he's going to look at his price, but like we have other options. Purdy, 5,600, Darnold's 5,400, some guy named Drake May's not that expensive. Even Josh Allen, who we talked about this point last week, but at 7,100, we were paying $8K last year in the playoffs for Josh Allen. So I don't think it's that big of a price discrepancy, even though Bo Nix is going to look quite fine. Last little question I have is about the defenses. So we don't talk about that a ton on the show. We talk about how much variance there is. I feel like we go into this game thinking Denver's healthier, thinking that they've been rested, and yet they weren't as untouchable as they were last year as a unit. Like in the last 2 months of the season, they did have some kinks showing in the armor, and even against the run, which is what we know the Bills want to do. So I don't know. I worry about just saying, okay, I mean, Josh Allen does have games where he implodes. With same thing with Lamar. We always say it's like Lamar could have 3 turnovers. Josh Allen could have 3 turnovers. We know that's possible. But I just don't think the Broncos, despite being kind of cheap for the Broncos, 2,800, are like that easy of a click for me.
Yeah, I agree. And to speak to that, from weeks 1 to 11 before the bye week, they were 4th in EPA per play defensively. They came out of their bye, and I don't know if this was injury related or just schematic. I honestly don't know, or just small sample size noise. But they were 21st in EPA per play from weeks 13 to 16. They played the Commanders, the Raiders, the Packers, the Jaguars, and that was one of those games where it's like, is this Trevor Lawrence stuff for real? And I guess it was, right? But they got kind of smoked for like a month there. Then they finished the season with Chris Oladukin, without Rashee Rice, and Trey Lance. So they haven't really faced anybody in quite a while, and there was a point, like you said, not too long ago where this defense was kind of struggling. So like I said, I'm not sure what that is, if that's just small sample size noise or what, but yeah, I'm not piling into the Broncos defense here thinking they're a slam dunk. But if this game was being played maybe in week 7 and we had this great stretch of play from the Broncos defense and they're at home and Josh Allen doesn't have pass catchers, I'd be like, okay, on a small slate, this is probably what you want to do. Again, I probably will come in underweight here, I think.
All right. My Vegas take, call me crazy, I'm going to take Josh Allen on the Bills.
Oh, man, this line is so tough. Because didn't it open Buffalo favored and then flipped?
Yes. Yep.
Man.
I dare you to bet against Josh Allen.
I did last week. I said, I think the Jags are going to steal this one.
I did too.
Oh, man. I'm really worried about Bo Nix here. I think this could be a floor game from Bo Nix and one of those that you kind of scratch your head with multiple turnovers. So I'm going to take that angle, and I will take the Bills. I also think we could see some weird Sean Payton stuff at an opportune time in the game where it's like, now is not the time to be doing the thing where you smell your own farts and call these weird plays. Like, just like, remember that Thursday night game against the Raiders that you and I had for Survivor? We were sweating and they were just running the ball so well over and over and over again.
They had some third down play calls that were like, why? Why are you doing this?
They tried to trick play with Cortland Sutton. And it's like, okay, let's just be normal here. So for those reasons, I will take the Bills. I just realized we glossed over RJ Harvey in this game. Any strong takes on him? Obviously, the matchup is beautiful.
I mean, I think you can play him with Bo Nix if you want to. Because they'll be popular, I will probably stay away from that combination. But, I mean, the Bills are 31st in EPA per rush. He's not expensive enough. He's been averaging 4 targets over the last 6 weeks, so I think the pass catching works there. I'm probably just going to meet the field.
All right, makes sense.
Okay. One little stat for you before we break. The Broncos have not won a playoff game since before the Fantasy Footballers started.
Wow. We could witness history here.
Yep. I mean, when I look at stats like that, which obviously none of the previous Broncos teams affect what's going on with this Broncos team. It seems like they're kind of due for a victory, but that's a long time, 2015. All right, let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Saving on your education should be a right, not a competition. At University of Phoenix, you'll get the best scholarship or savings you qualify for. Simple as that. Explore scholarship options at University of Phoenix.
Pro Savings Days are on at Lowe's. Get up to 35% off select major appliances. Plus, My Lowe's Pro Rewards members get an additional 5% off when you buy 5 or more select GE, Whirlpool, and Electrolux kitchen or laundry major appliances. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 123. Discount valid to My Lowe's Pro Rewards members only. Exclusions and other restrictions apply. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. See associate or Lowe's.com for details. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Visit Lowe's.com/terms for details. Subject to change.
Just a couple of guys talking ball. That's what we're doing.
You know us.
It's kind of nice. I between all the fantasy conversations, everything else, at the end of the day, I do like talking football and looking at it from a couple different angles. The next game is going to be the 49ers at the Seahawks. Seahawks are 7-point home favorites. The over-under is 45.5. And this is the third time we have seen this game. And I do need to give you a couple of stats here because Kyle Shanahan, he's faced Mike McDonald-led Seahawks 4 times, and his teams have averaged 18 points per game. Okay? It's not great. But I also could flip that stat and tell you that Brock Purdy is 4-0 on the road against the Seahawks in his career. So which stat gives here?
Which one do you trust more? Well, their team total is 19.3. So market expectation...
Huge stuff there.
...is saying the first stat is probably correct.
It's really hard when you look at the San Francisco 49ers and say, you guys got here in some crazy fashions. Like, look back at that, what was that, week 3 game with Mac Jones against the Rams. Like and against the Cardinals, they won one. Against the Rams, they won another on, I think it was a Thursday night. They shouldn't have won a couple of these games. And yet here they are. They were almost the 1 seed against the Seattle defense that ranks number 1 in EPA per play. So this is set up quite well for Seattle at home. Where do you want to start the conversation at?
I mean, let's just keep going on the Niners side since they're kind of the trendy team here, or at least not trendy, but just like I think most people were surprised by the outcome last weekend. So let's talk about how we think this game goes for them. I do think on paper it's hard to draw up a worse spot, but at the same time, you know what the defense is going to do, right? Brock Purdy has seen this defense twice already this year. Just saw him 2 weeks ago in that Week 18, number 1 seed Super Bowl, basically. In that game, however, did not have Trent Williams. Trent Williams is back. He came off the injury last week, so presumably he'll be healthier here. That's the positive. Perhaps we also get Ricky Pearsall back, which I think matters a ton for how the offense operates.
I agree a lot.
To be able to kind of just open things up. And even if he doesn't have a huge box score, like just you have to respect his play down the field. If he is back this week, even at, let's say, 80% of his health or whatever it is, doesn't mean I'm necessarily playing him in DFS. But I do think it helps overall the entire offense. So no Trent Williams last time, no Ricky Pearsall last time, no George Kittle this time. And that is, to me, massive because when you look at his splits on and off for Christian McCaffrey in the run game, way less effective. Like he is just so dominant as a blocker. And you think about, Tondas McBasketball, no disrespect to the man, he's not George Kittle, right? He just can't do the stuff Kittle can do where you make these amazing plays down the field and just turn a 8-yard catch into a 24-yard catch and it flips the field. It's a huge thing. So all that to say is I think mostly I'm expecting Purdy to have a middling to average performance here and not be the guy you need on this slate. But at the same time, I think a lot of the field is going to feel the exact same way. And so just from a game theory standpoint, I do think Purdy stacks are viable this week just because the last thing we saw when these two teams played was like Purdy couldn't do anything, the Niners stunk, and we just are going to copy and paste box scores. So I'm at least leaving the light on here just from a game theory standpoint.
Yeah, I think the 49ers wide receivers were one of the things I circled on this slate as nobody wants to go there. And whether that it's looking at Seattle's defense or, so Purdy double stacks are very interesting to me when I look at roster percentages. CMC is still going to get clicked a ton. When you get that type of receiving work, he's still going to be incredible.
And you could play him with McCaffrey just because of the pass catching.
For sure. We took an under on CMC as a runner just because, like, efficiency-wise, but that's not really been his thing the whole year, right? It's we've never said, like, CMC's running, I think it was 3.9 yards per carry this year. It's, like, really low, but when you add in all that receiving work, it just matters. So I'm interested in Juwan Jennings because I think he's in that middle range. And I think a bigger point in this slate, I told you right before the show, these middle range to lower range wide receivers are not going to get clicked a ton. Jennings, Pearsall, you look at some of the other, when we talked about Troy Franklin, Keon Coleman, all of these guys are in the not going to get clicked to maybe even dart throw category. So even when we talk about there's a bunch of cheap Texans wide receivers that you can go to, there's Luther Burden, but I like all of these receivers with Kittle out because I think Jake Tonches is going to be one of the most popular tight ends, like maybe one or two with Loveland. And as awesome as he's been without Kittle, 6 games without Kittle, he's averaged over 12 PPR points per game, almost 7 targets. That's cool. I feel like this is one of those spots where if everybody's depending on Jake Tonjes, like there's so many other options for me.
Yeah, I do think he will probably be second in roster percentage behind Loveland. And honestly, might even flip him. I wouldn't be shocked either way.
3,400.
Optimizers, yeah, just because of the price and the opportunity without Kittle are going to funnel you here, especially on the 2-game slates. Like this is kind of like we talked about last week with the Loveland, Puka, who's the third guy last week? Josh Jacobs trio. Like optimizers are going to give you a ton of on the 2-gamer. Bo Nix, RJ Harvey, Tonjes, JSN, and kind of like
just like we all thought.
Just like we all predicted back in week 3. So speaking again, just from a how do I get different on these small slates, I probably will try to again limit that specific trio. I already gave my thoughts on Bo Nix. I already gave my thoughts. I think Harvey's a pretty good play. I think the matchup is good for Tonjes. Like Seattle kind of wants you the way they play. They like are good giving up catches to running backs. It's like fine, check it down. Who cares? Throw to the tight end in the middle of the field. Have your 8 yards. Who cares? They don't really give up a ton of explosives. So I think you could play one of Tonjes, one of CMC. I think you could play them together if you really wanted to play with Purdy and get different. But to me, I do think this is one of those classic spots in DFS where like on paper, it makes sense. But we know the story with these tight ends, right? Most often, all these guys on a main slate that are priced between like 3,200 and like 4,400, they're kind of the same bet. And any one of these guys can fail and go 3 for 20 and no touchdown. And also, at the same time, any number of those dudes could go 4 for 40 and a touchdown. So when the field is going to funnel in to this player, I probably won't, is how I'll be approaching it and just hoping I kind of catch the right side of variance here on a short slate. That's my personal approach. One of my favorite ways to play it is to get huge leverage on Tonjes and just play AJ Barner on the other side, who's 3,600. He's basically their wide receiver too in terms of routes over like Shaheed and Kupp. JSN's going to get his, but thinking about like who's going to play Barner over Tonjes? Nobody, right? And you also get this tush-push equity with Barner. They'll use him on sneaks and sometimes at the goal line too. So I think Barner is one of my favorite plays, especially on the short slate, just as leverage off of Tonjes.
Yeah, Mike McDonald was asked about using AJ Barner as a tush push, and he's like, he's huge. That's why we designed that play, because have you seen how big this guy is? And just to give you some numbers with Barner, he has 10 receptions inside the red zone. That's as many as JSN, so it's tied for the team lead. He's been targeted on 25% of his routes inside the red zone. So at 3,600, you mentioned it's like the same bet, and then you look at the implied team total of the Seahawks. It's like that seems like a better leverage play than everybody running to Jake Tonjes. So I do like that a lot. And the last thing I'll mention about the 49ers side is I do like Juwan Jennings. I hope Ricky Pearsall is back. But Juwan Jennings, against two eye looks this year, has led the team in first read targets. And Seattle, you mentioned, that's how they live. They have two eye safety looks. They live in nickel. Nickel's like 93% of the time. It's the highest rate in the NFL. And they kind of trust their team to tackle, which a lot of teams are the exact opposite. Like, we do not trust our team at all. That's what they want to do. So I like Juwan Jennings. Probably will be much lower on Jake Tonjes. CMC is CMC. I do wonder, from a pricing standpoint, we have CMC, we have Puka, and JSN. Those are like the three expensive guys this week.
On the 4-gamer, yeah.
Yeah, so what are your thoughts on like how you play those three?
Oh, man, they're all good plays.
I don't know if you can get to all three in the same lineup, and I probably won't just for roster percentages.
You probably could if you played some nasty boys, but I likely will only be doing 2 in some spots, and some spots maybe even only 1. I think McCaffrey is probably the best cash play if you're playing cash, because I think he could catch 6 or 7 passes here in this game without Kittle. I think if I had to pick Puka or JSN, I think Puka is how I'd rank it. You know what? I'm going to give a cop-out. Check best plays on Saturday morning.
And in best plays, it's probably going to say, yes, just play them.
It's going to say 1A, 1B, and 1C. Yeah, they're all really good plays, honestly. I think I just lean the team total as like the tiebreaker here for some of these spots. Like the Rams and Seattle, they have a higher team total. They're probably more likely to score touchdowns, higher ceiling. But yeah, McCaffrey probably is going to catch 4 or 5 to, even 8 passes here.
Yeah, if you're playing the 2-game slate, McCaffrey could give you 18 points, and that might be what you need.
I mean, his receptions line is 6.5. That's right. Like wide receiver 1 normally.
He is him. He's awesome. He's so fun to watch. All right, the Seattle side, Sam Darnold has not been great in the second half of the season. It's kind of been something that's masked despite them being number 1 seed. And a talking point that we brought up before, last year, their offensive coordinator was Ryan Grubb. Their quarterback was Geno Smith. Both were let go because this team was turning over the ball way too much. This team has quietly turned the ball over more this year.
That's shocking.
It's wild.
It doesn't feel that way. Maybe because their defense got better. Not that they were bad last year. They were elite.
A 10-win team last year that didn't make the playoffs.
I know. And then just watching Geno this year, it's like, oh, Lord, like, how could they have more turnovers? But, I mean, you're the stats guy.
They're just I don't understand actually how it works. There's so many things like that when you put them together, it's kind of like, we'll talk about the Bears defense. It's like this team should not function if they are this bad in yards per play, and yet they keep getting turnovers all over the place. The thing with Darnold is when he's not pressured, he's good. This is the matchup for that, right?
For sure. And they should get their left tackle Charles Cross back this week, which obviously helps. Not that it was a huge concern either way, just because the Niners have not been able to rush the passer at all, really since their injuries started piling up. So on paper, it's a very clean spot for Sam Darnold. Last time we saw this game script play out, the Seahawks were just so dominant running the football. Like, they were able to get off 17 carries for Zach Charbonnet and 16 carries in the same game for Ken Walker. When that happens, Darnold is unlikely to get there just because not as many dropbacks, touchdowns went to Charbonnet, that sort of thing. So perhaps this game is closer than the market suggests. In that instance, if I'm playing that type of game flow, I want some Sam Darnold and I want some double stacks. And to me, that's where I'll play my AJ Barner stuff, where it's like, I'll play him with Darnold, hope he throws for a touchdown. And obviously, if you play Darnold, you want him with JSN. So yeah, I think he's a good play. I wouldn't be surprised either way from a fantasy standpoint. how this looks, I think from a real life NFL standpoint, he'll be efficient enough because he probably won't get pressured. He'll probably complete a high percentage of his passes and do enough for Seattle to be successful. Doesn't necessarily mean you need him in DFS, but I do think Sam Darnold largely plays well in this game.
Yes, I think, Nix with the rushing ability feels like a better play, but Darnold with the team implied total and just how bad the 49ers have been feels like one that I feel will have a little more confidence in a double stack. So Darnold, JSN, and then Barner would be the one that we brought up earlier to throw in there. Real quick about the running backs. Charbonnet, he's kind of like their goal line guy, and we kind of have to respect that. But over the final 3 weeks of the season, he saw 30% of the team's total rush attempts and targets. That's the mark that we usually say is like a workhorse. And the 49ers ranked 29th in yards before contact over the final 6 weeks of the season. So it's a good spot. I did see some rumblings about Fred Warner running around. I don't think that matters. I don't think he's actually going to come back. But did you see that?
I did, yeah. A pretty incredible recovery. We'll see. He's clearly not 100%, but
way ahead of schedule.
Could you imagine being on schedule? If you're on schedule, you're behind. So we'll see. They have until Saturday to activate him. But either way, it's not going to change for me a ton because in his first game back in such a long time off a pretty serious ankle injury, I don't think he'll be 100%. I think it's going to be huge for the locker room. Like to see Fred Warner run through the tunnel would be massive for their kind of just overall, the vibes, Kyle, is what we care about. And he's super fun to watch play, so I actually hope he does play, but I don't think he's 100%. So for me, it's not going to change a lot about how I feel about the running attack here from Seattle.
Yeah, if you want to play Charbonnet, the Seattle defense, and then pick who you want to run him back with, like that's a way to get out of this game if you're not stacking it up. You think it hits the under. You think Seattle's defense gets a couple turnovers. You've seen that. I think Seattle's going to be one up there in terms of popularity at 3,200. I also think you could see people punt with San Francisco. They're 2,200 just from a pricing standpoint. But yeah, I think Charbonnet would be my preferred running back.
I agree.
All right. I think I look at the line. I see 7. I think I'm going to take the Niners and the 7 points.
It was 7.5 and market moved it to 7. So seems like that's the quote unquote sharp side, whatever the heck that means. I will take the under on the Niners team total.
There you go. Let's take a quick break and we'll be back.
Protein is now at Starbucks, and it's never tasted so good. Try our all-new caramel protein lattes with up to 31 grams of protein and options with no added sugar. Level up your drink at Starbucks.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest, the last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your
windshield wipers? eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying. Just beautiful.
Millions of finds, each with a story. eBay. Things people love.
All right, this next game is the Texans at the Patriots. The Patriots are 3-point home favorites. The over-under is at 40.5. And the sad part about this game is we probably won't have Nico Collins. That really changes this whole landscape.
For sure, yeah. He did not practice on Thursday, and you really can't ever go from a DNP to a full practice in the protocol, so he will be ruled out, which is massive. I thought we might have just a one-for-one cancellation if the Pats didn't have Christian Gonzalez and then they didn't have Nico on the other side, but it looks like Christian Gonzalez, barring a setback, will play in this game, and not having Nico is just massive. Per Bill Barnwell, Stroud has an 81.7 QBR this year, throwing to Nico Collins. That drops to 57.9 throwing to anybody else on this team. So I'll be honest, I don't have a ton of interest in Stroud here, even though you can stack Stroud for super cheap if you wanted to play Jaden Higgins and either the tight end and Dalton Schultz or Christian Kirk if you think he stays hot after last week. The stack is super cheap. But I really don't see it here in this spot on the road. The total is super low against the Patriots, who they're getting guys back on that side of the ball. So I'm out on Stroud in this slate.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's averaging just 13.8 fantasy points per game on the road. He hasn't hit 20 DK points since before the beginning of November. So It's just hard to really get there this week. I do think it opens up a lot of possibilities of who is the wide receiver that you want. Christian Kirk was the one that came through this past week, 8 for 144 and 1. He's 4,100, so he'll probably get clicked from people chasing last week. I think Jaden Higgins is the player they drafted to play the Nico Collins role. Obviously, they want them to play alongside each other, but we do have 2 games where Nico wasn't on the field, and he was solid. And at 4,600, I think he's an interesting play. Xavier Hutchinson was ahead of him in routes, though. So it's like this combination of these Iowa State wide receivers, Christian Kirk, and then Dalton Schultz kind of is a good play. Do you know that he leads this slate? So the 4-game slate in expected fantasy points per game at the tight end position.
Does he really?
I mean, it's Loveland kind of had like the first half of the season that didn't help him in the expected category, but Schultz at 4,200 is interesting.
Yeah, and I think you could play these guys as one-offs. If you didn't want to play Stroud, I think that's totally fine. If like somebody here in this price point goes for, 5 or 6 catches and like 60 yards, especially on a 2-gamer, that's probably enough at these prices. So I'm fine to play these guys as one-offs, but like I said, I don't have a ton of interest in a stack here. I will say, it feels like the DFS and best ball communities sometimes overlap in certain ways where it's like last week, it's like, oh, I really want to play Luther Burden. I know he's not going to run all the routes, but I really want to play Luther Burden. And his price point got steamed up quite a bit, or his roster percentage, I should say. On this slate, the feeling of clicking Xavier Hutchinson over Jaden Higgins feels wrong. Yet,
agreed.
I would not be shocked at all if he scores more points, just because he's on the field. The team likes him for whatever reason. Like he's just on the field enough. So normally I'm kind of I agree, like follow the rookie upside, follow all these things. But in the games where Nico didn't play, he went 4 for 34 and 1. We're talking about Jaden Higgins. So he scored a touchdown. The other game, week 18, 2 for 23 and 1. If he does not score a touchdown and that similar outcome happens at that catch and yardage totals, like you don't need Jaden Higgins. So I think one of my favorite ways to play that side is to come in underweight Higgins. I think people are going to be super excited to just copy and paste Nico out, Higgins in, and I'll opt for somebody else at lower roster percentage on the Texans.
Yeah, it's just sad because you feel like the Texans aren't really needed on this slate. If you look at all 8 teams, if you're playing the 4-game slate, all 8 teams, they're last in yards per play, last in EPA per rush, last in first downs per game. And we talked about some issues with Stroud. Their games also have averaged just 41 combined points per game. It just doesn't feel like a great spot where you need them. But then on the other side, if you think the Texans offense is just going to be muted based on Nico Collins not being there, does this overall game environment matter that much? We saw that last week with the Chargers, where it's like the game didn't really matter for DFS that much. Like no one really truly got there that you said, like, I have to have this player. So how are you treating the Patriots side?
Yeah, you needed Patriots defense. Ramondre was really good for DFS in that spot. But overall, all the other guys were kind of just meh. And so I think the under here is probably how I'm leaning in terms of seeing this game going. Like Houston's defense is just so good. And Drake May, I believe, is also so good. But when push comes to shove, and I think about kind of how the Texans want to play, you're down your best offensive skill player in Nico Collins. Are you going to put the ball in CJ Stroud's hands and try to win this game in a shootout? Or are you going to try to play field position, maybe create some turnovers? Like, we love Drake May. He will turn the ball over. He had a fumble last week at basically the 5-yard line. The Chargers couldn't score early on. He's taken a bunch of sacks this year. I think Will Campbell has looked okay off of injury, but he's coming off injury. And now you get the best pass rush in the league potentially. So the way that I see the game going is lots of field position, willing to punt, play awesome defense for the Texans. And I do think that could really limit the ceiling outcomes from a possession standpoint and obviously efficiency standpoint too from the Patriots side. So I really love Drake May, as you guys all know. I probably will come in underweight most Patriot pieces this week.
Yeah, I feel like everybody in this game, you're trying to search for the piece. And we talk often on these smaller slates where it's like, I want to get a piece from every single game. I just can't figure out the path where somebody is essential to this slate. Like Hunter Henry's kind of interesting. He's going to fall through the cracks because of some of the other tight ends we mentioned. I guess Stephon Diggs is going to get clicked just because he's going to be the one earning the most targets. It's a revenge game, whatever else. I just don't have a ton of interest. I don't even have, Drake May's probably going to end up being 4th on my pecking order of quarterbacks.
Who do you like over him? Price adjusted.
Darnold. Josh Allen even. Josh Allen's at 7,100. It's just, that's beans.
That's beans.
Dude, that's nothing, man. I mean, Knicks is right there at 5,800.
The game I'm most excited about Sunday,
that.
from a DFS standpoint, is Rams-Bears. So I think this game, for kind of wrap up for Houston, New England, it does profile as kind of a slugfest, lower scoring. Defenses can win here, all those things. I think the field will feel the same way. So like from a leverage standpoint, Ross percentage wise, perhaps you get some good leverage plays here. On paper, to me, it does profile as not the best environment on the slate. And this is one of those too where, again, don't double count, but looks like we could potentially get some snow in this game. It'll be colder, so just track that throughout the weekend. But there's a lot of data points here suggesting we're probably not getting a huge shootout.
Yeah, I just wish Nico played. I'd feel so different about this game. So I'm just going to say the Texans don't hit their team implied total.
At a field goal, I will take Houston plus the 3, but I think the Patriots win this game.
Last game we're going to talk about is the Rams at the Bears. The Rams are 3.5-point road favorites. Over-unders 48.5. This is the game that is going to be cold. Really cold. And if you live in Chicago, I guess this is just like what it is. That's part of life. It's
just
what
life.
You do.
It's a lifestyle, Kyle.
Kevin Roth of Roto Grinders, who's probably one of the best weather people in the DFS space. I'm going to read him word for word. He said, the cold is a little impactful. The wind is a little impactful. The snow could be a little impactful. And the sum of all those little issues could be a bump down to offense and special teams.
So it sounds like we should monitor it, but not, as we said on the show 3 or 4 times now, double count it.
Yes. This game profile is the one to go back and forth like the most of the 4 playoff games. Like Chicago was second in offensive plays per game, 6th in combined points per game, and Los Angeles has been a tank all year long. They're 3rd in pass rate over expectation, 2nd in yards per play, 4th in EPA per play. Sean McVay. I mean, I could just say the name Sean McVay and you're like, I'm in. How do I get there? The crazy thing about the Bears is that if you're a Bears fan, I'm surprised you haven't died yet from just a heart attack every single week. They've lived and died in the fourth quarter. I was even going through some stats of like what they're like on their first drive and then what they're like on their final 4 drives. And it's just this drastic, like all over the map. I'll probably map it out later this year, but there are game scripts where they can get there. And the way that they get there is the back door. But I think my favorite piece in this game, Puka aside, is I really like the Bears running game. I told you this before the show, but I think this sets up really well with their offensive line and with the way the Rams have played recently on defense.
Are you thinking that because we talked about that last week against the Packers, like the Packers have really struggled defensively, and then you saw that in the second half. I thought they would come out and be way more aggressive running the football, the Bears, in that game. And they they tried to run the ball. They just weren't like super explosive. Do you think this is a game where we could see some explosive in the run game? Because I was looking at some stuff and like realizing over the last 6 weeks, just in general, the Rams defense has not been great. Against outside zone runs over the last 6 weeks, they were giving up 7.7 yards per carry. And that's kind of what DeAndre Swift does. So I'm with you. I kind of like Swift a lot this week. I don't know what's gotten into me over the last handful of DFS slates. I'm a Swift guy now. I'm a Swiftie, Kyle. But I do think it does set up well. And I think in general, it sets up well for the Bears offense. But give me more thoughts on the rushing attack here.
All right. So one, they're going to get lost on this slate. Swift and Monungai. Looking at all the other running backs we already mentioned, Harvey's going to get clicked a ton. CMC, I think Charbonnet's going to be in the mix, even Cook. So roster percentage already, I love it. But the Rams have a ton of light box sets. So like 6 or fewer defenders on 45% of run snaps. That's the 5th highest rate in the NFL. So in other words, there's a lot of looks where there's not a ton of people in the box. And the Bears, they average an NFL high 6.4 yards per carry against light boxes. I think I'm interested in these running backs over the course of the entire slate. I'm not saying like they're the key piece, they're the only thing, but I will have more exposure to Swift than I think the field does. That either means I'm really smart and ahead of it, or I'm, too deep in the stats.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll find out on Monday.
But no, they're not getting clicked.
For sure. And on FanDuel, too, like if you're playing over there, they're really good values relatively. 6,700 for Swift, 5,600 for Monungai. Does make a lot of sense. I guess the question on the rushing attack here is like, the spread suggests the Rams win this game, right? 3.5. If you're into the Rams, or the Bears running backs, I assume you think that this game stays close and we don't have a repeat of last week where they get blown out and then have to come back in the second half.
Correct. I think my way I'd want to play this is a Stafford double stack with Swift on the other side. And then, if you want to have another Bears piece to overstack it, I'm fine with that too. The Rams running backs are interesting because you'd think as a favorite against a Bears team that you can run on that Kyron would be clicked, but they're still doing this 50-50 stuff. Even going back the last 6 weeks, it's 50-50 inside the 5. I have a hard time clicking Kyron at 6,600.
Yeah, I thought in the playoffs, we might see more, not the Corum would go away.
But it's like Kyron time.
Yeah, maybe he gets 65% of the touches, but really they're kind of splitting. Last week, like you said, they pretty much 50-50, 13 carries for Kyron, 11 carries for Corum. They both saw 2 targets. Anything can happen in a one-game slate. Maybe Kyron's running hot, and so they go more to him, but they kind of are alternating drives right now. So I think they're both fine plays. I don't have a strong lean because I think they're both going to see pretty similar workload here. I will note for the rushing attack, the Rams are likely to get Kevin Dotson back, their right guard. He has been awesome this year, and when you look at kind of their splits when he's been on the field, running to the right side of the line where he plays, they are way more efficient when he is healthy. So I do think this is an awesome spot on paper for the backs to get there. It's just tough when they're splitting work. So I'm fine taking shots on both of them in tournaments, but I do think the matchup is great.
Yeah, I'm interested in the Bears running backs. I think Loveland's going to be probably the most popular tight end, rightfully so. And then I mentioned earlier that the wide receivers on this slate are going to be left for dead. I think Rome Odunze is completely off everybody's radar. He's interesting to me, just based on the way that the Rams, set up their defense. It's interesting to me. A lot of cover 2, cover 3 shells, and he leads the team in first read target share. But it feels like Rome were like, I want to see it first. So from a large field perspective, especially playing the 4 game, he's interesting for late swap. He's interesting at 5,300. I just think Burden's going to get clicked way more. So I like that angle if you're trying to get a little contrarian. I'll probably meet the field with Loveland just because he's kind of their top target right now. Any other Bears thoughts?
I think overall, they're a hard team to talk about because the way that their games have gone, what they're doing is not sustainable. But if they do find themselves in a spot where Caleb Magic is needed, I think they can do it. I really think the Bears can have success here offensively. Just how it happens for DFS is the question I'm not sure on. Do they get behind and have to throw a ton? Do they have success with Swift? Are they just efficient enough to keep this game close and all these guys are pretty good? I'm just not sure. So I definitely want to play some of these Caleb stacks. The Rams are 30th in EPA per play on play action over the last 6 weeks. Bryce Young looked awesome last week. You hit that long crosser to I think it was Jalen Coker. They've been really vulnerable to that type of stuff. When I think about last year's Lions, this year's Bears under Ben Johnson, that's what they do best. So getting Loveland on crossers, getting Burden on crossers, stuff like that. I think Caleb can have a really, really nice game here despite the cold weather and all that sort of stuff. So I'm higher than market on Chicago. I like their team total to go over here, and I like the game environment in general. Even though there's wind and cold and it might snow, if this game was played in a dome, I think this game would be 51.5 or something as the total. So I'm willing to play this game as if weather is not a concern and hope both offenses can roll. Both defenses have really struggled. We talked about that last week at the Bears. It's their turnovers are great and their EPA will look pretty good because they generate turnovers, but they're among the worst teams in the league in yards per play. They're just getting crushed. In the second half last week, they flipped the switch. They played really well. They blitzed a ton. They were way better. It's probably the best half of football they played all year. But in totality, across the season, Chicago's defense has been terrible. Now you have the MVP candidate on the other side. So I think this game does go back and forth. I definitely want to play it more than the field is going to play it.
If you think this game hits the under, then the running backs are the play. But if you think that there's a chance for a back and forth affair, that's where Loveland, 15 targets last week was, hey, we need to come back. And in game scripts where they just kind of, run the ball, which is what they want to do, right? Chicago wants to do that. They want to do play action. Then I think Loveland, if you're playing that way, then I would stay away from Loveland because he's one of the most popular plays on the slate, if you think the game hits the under. On the Rams side, Stafford is not going to face a ton of pressure because that's Chicago all year long, 6th lowest pressure rate in the league. It's easy for me to look at a Stafford double stack with Puka and another option and go, oh, they can totally get there. Puka's great. Play Puka. What do you do with Devontae Adams? I think he's kind of the bigger talking point. 6,500 is quite cheap.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about Puka and Devontae, especially when you get to the playoffs, is like Stafford is not throwing the ball at anybody else. Last week, these guys combined for over 70% of Stafford's pass attempts. I could see a similar situation here, right? Where it's like the tight ends might each get somewhere in the range of 2 to 4. The running backs are probably going to get 2 to 3. But like both these guys, you look up Monday and you're like, oh yeah, both had 12 targets again. Obviously, wouldn't be surprising. So I think Devontae's a really good play. I like Puka, obviously. Who doesn't? But I think Devontae is certainly a guy that I like to be overweight on. He had some weird drops last week where the chemistry maybe just wasn't right, and it was his first game in a couple of weeks off the hamstring. I think he'll be healthier this week. So I like Devontae. Obviously, you always get the 2-touchdown upside because of his goal line role too.
Yeah, so just to summarize, I think the running backs here, I think Swift in general is a great leverage play on the overall slate. Puka is going to be the most popular play on the slate, I'm assuming, because he's awesome. Luther Burden's going to be another player that's clicked a ton. Loveland's going to be this popular tight end. I don't really want to play either defense at all. And I'm not playing Adams and Kyron together. They've actually had pretty negative correlation all year long, so I'm not playing those two in those game scripts. Like, the problem with Adams is he scores the touchdowns and kind of ruins it for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's what Kyron does to him. So any final take on the Vegas line?
Oh, man. I did see that the Bears are the most bet underdog to win this week. And when I see that,
you know what that means.
With how, I don't want to say lucky, but they've been very fortunate to win in the fourth quarter of a bunch of these games. I think the magic runs out here. So I will take the Rams -3.5.
I will take the over.
Kyle. I actually like that call too.
Okay.
Put that in a parlay? Come on. I mean, that's our special here.
That's great stuff.
Slate Breaker of the Week.
All right, we kind of did this last week. We were kind of off the cuff. So I'll say for Saturday games, my favorite play, dart throw wise, is Troy Franklin. But I think the player that I'll be most overweight is probably AJ Barner.
I was going to say Barner as like the nasty boy you need. I like that call. My take for Saturday, and honestly for the full game slate, I don't know if this is the slate breaker. It's actually the opposite. My call for this week is Bo Nix is not the optimal on either the obviously the 4-gamer, but on the 2-gamer. So I'm coming in underweight on Nix.
Just say the phrase. If he beats you.
I'm not going to say that.
Wasn't it? It was famously Mac Jones on this podcast.
It was Mac Jones on a Thanksgiving slate. I think they played the Vikings, if I recall, when he was a Patriot. And I was just like, look, I'm not doing it. If he beats me, he beats me. And the guy goes out and he drops like 303 when no one expected it. Yeah, that's Bo Nix this week, which means, listeners, if you're not aware, that is a guarantee he is the optimal quarterback this week.
And then I brought up DeAndre Swift. I think he's probably my favorite play on Sunday.
Like that call a lot. I'm going to also stick in that game. I'm going to go Devontae.
Nice. I respect that a lot.
Prop it like it's hot.
If you want all of our props, you can get them in the DFS Pass, dfspass.com. You get notified on Discord. And if you're new to us, remember, you get it for free right now. So it's been a good year for us in the props streets, and you get to talk out everything we do with everybody in Discord. I will throw out an over. I feel like my favorite overs, which I never give, are receiving overs for running backs.
Which are usually the most volatile market.
Yes, but I feel like I've done quite well with him this year.
You have.
RJ Harvey. Over 18.5 receiving yards. He's been over in 5 of his last 7 games. He leads the team in targets per route run over the last 6 weeks. So ahead of Sutton, ahead of everybody else, 26% targets per route run. He's averaging 4 targets per game in that span. So RJ Harvey, I think he's going to see enough work where he goes over this receiving line.
All right, this is not about the matchup whatsoever because the Bears are not good defensively from an efficiency standpoint. But the books are saying the median outcome here for Stafford for his longest completion is a 40-yard pass. That is insane. And granted, he obviously could do it. But usually in this market for longest completion, it's like 32.5, depending on the quarterback, to like 36.5, maybe 37.5. You rarely see 39.5. We already talked about maybe some wind, maybe some snow, very cold. Just hard to hit this line. He's only hit it 5 times the entire season. 3 of those came in the first month of the year, so he really has not hit this much at all. So just a play on the number. I'll take under 39.5 for the longest completion for Matthew Stafford.
I'm telling you, man, first play, Kanata Mumpfield to the house.
Probably. We gave out Purdy under, I think it was 34.5 last week for his longest completion. And it was just, it was honestly comical on the first play of the game. Demarcus Robinson, 61 yards. All of us together in Discord were like, okay, now we don't have to sweat this the rest of the game. It's done. I just thought that was so funny, but that's the way it goes.
Longest completion, longest reception, longest rush it's a different kind of sweat than like the just acquiring catches over time or yards. It's like this one play. And I don't
know what's worse. Like, would it be worse to lose it on the last drive of the game or to not have any, well, I guess you have a huge sweat at that point. But in this situation, if you lose it on the first play, you have no sweat. I don't know if that's better or worse, but it was comical.
It's better to lose it right away.
And it was Demarcus Robinson, which made it even better.
Because when it happens at the very end, the sad psychological conclusion, which we talk about stuff in the offseason, is you go, oh, I almost made it. When it goes real quick, you go, I wasn't even close.
Yeah. We did lose an under on Roma Dunze last week on Caleb's unbelievable play on 4th down, one where he rolled left. It was like 4th and 4, whatever. Had to have it. If they don't have that, the game's over. And just the throw of the year, in my opinion, was unbelievable. Who catches it? Of course it's Roma Dunze. Why wouldn't he? Goes over his prop, catch 2 balls the entire night.
Make sure you check out everything in the DFS Pass, dfspass.com, including our best plays, our most important resource where you can get through all of our rankings for any slate that you do. dfspass.com. Betz, sign us off.
Yes, fun episode today. Really enjoyed talking about these games, the games of the year, some are saying this weekend in the NFL. Should be awesome. Enjoy all the football. Best of luck in DFS. Good luck in props. And we'll catch you next week for conference championships. See you then.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com.
Hi, I'm Angie Hicks, co-founder of Angie. And one thing I've learned is that you buy a house, but you make it a home. Because with every fix, update, and renovation, it becomes a little more your own. So you need all your jobs done well. For nearly 30 years, Angie has helped millions of homeowners hire skilled pros for the projects that matter. From plumbing to electrical, roof repair to deck upgrades. So leave it to the pros who will get your jobs done well. Hire high-quality pros at Angie.com.